straight up lighting. Lighting is literally key.
Every production, there's always a curveball.
Hey guys, welcome back to our brand new series, the Collaborations Podcast, where I'm teaming up with filmmakers, editors, and creative YouTubers so that we can provide actionable value to help you create better content and grow your videography business. Now, today, as you can see on screen, I'm joined by Kyle and Anastas from Subtle Cinematics, an absolutely amazing YouTube channel. I'll obviously link them below. But thank you so much for joining us, guys. I know you're based in Canada. So yeah, how are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be one of the first on your podcast.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And I said to you guys just before the call as well, I've actually been so blown away on like the response for this as well, because obviously we're a small growing YouTube channel. And I just expected everyone to be like, no, I haven't got time for that. I haven't got time. So yeah, I really appreciate, obviously all the love and support as well. And hopefully, the whole point of this is to keep like a really short video, just to the point. I'm going to ask you guys one question and we can have a chat about that to really kind of provide some value, to the audience as well. So if you do enjoy this at any point, make sure you go over and check out their channel, and also let us know in the comments, because if you guys do enjoy this, then obviously we'll make more videos like it. And if you don't, then we'll probably stop. So I'm hoping that this isn't the first and last podcast that we do. That would be good. So guys, the question that I've got for you, you've obviously got some stunning visuals and you worked on some really cool music projects, car adverts and things like that. And your channel's got loads of helpful advice. So what I wanted to know is, if I'm just starting out and I'm starting a video production company and I want to improve my portfolio, what's the one thing that I can do that will instantly start to improve my content?
So yeah, I can kick that one off. So straight up lighting. Lighting is literally key. So I feel like YouTube is like just littered with the newest camera body spec videos, the newest lens videos, and people get so hung up on that because they say, oh, this new 1.8 lens has an amazing looking bokeh. Like I need this, or I need a prime now. I need the 70-200, but they're not investing in lights. And like even just panel lights will go such a long way. But once you start to get into light modifiers, investing in like an aperture product or Godox or Nanlite, and then you start getting into the modifiers like the soft boxes, and you start to position them differently and really dial in your lighting, you can literally make a camera that shoots maximum 1080p resolution look like a 4K or 6K camera. Like straight up, honestly, we own a red Komodo, and if we don't properly light the scene, it literally looks like a Canon T3i. Like it looks horrible. So really, it is all lighting. So if you can invest in lighting and do your research on lighting, and maybe for every one lens you purchase, you're purchasing a light next. Like that would be the route to go. And honestly, I'm speaking on this because I'm a filmmaker that for the first 2 or 3 years of filmmaking, like I was purchasing the GH4, the GH5, and then the Sigma 18-35 with the meta bones, and I'm buying all the lenses and the newest tech and the gimbals. But like I had these like $150 Dracast panel lights that were horrible when I should have had an aperture 120D with softboxes or multiple apertures. So yeah, it's just something I see time and time again, is people purchasing the newest spec'd out cameras, but not having any lighting to support any of the specs or anything.
Do you know what I find hilarious about that as well is like, I'm totally guilty for this, by the way, like totally. But I think like every filmmaker is when they start out, right? Because you're into filmmaking because you like cameras and you like the tech, and you're like, I'm not a lighting guy or I'm not an audio guy, but those things are like just insanely important. You buy the lowest aperture lens, which is obviously more expensive to let more light in, but then you simply won't spend the money on like a lighting rig to get the most out of your subject or anything like that. I don't know what it is that like gravitates people more towards like the camera gear. Maybe just that's the way that we're wired. But yeah, certainly I feel like the same myself. I've definitely been guilty for that.
Every filmmaker is. And there's a part of it that like, I mean, posting photos of lights on your Instagram isn't a flex, but posting the newest camera or the newest lens is sexy, right? So I think that plays into people's psychology when they're purchasing stuff, where it's like,
It looks cool in the gear
It
shop.
looks cool, yeah. And I want to look cool more than I want to put out a quality product, which is like completely backwards, right?
Yeah.
And I think kind of the more you go through your filmmaking journey, you really learn from your mistakes, essentially.
To add though too is that like you don't need a light to create a video, whereas you do need lenses to create a video.
Yeah.
So I mean, and like a lot of people they'll get the lenses, they'll get the newest lens, the newest camera, learn how to use it. But getting into lighting and understanding proper lighting techniques is like a whole other thing. It's like learning how to use a camera. It's like a whole other section that you need to research. And I don't know, maybe people just don't want to do the research. I feel like there's less research to do and find, like in terms of YouTube tutorials for every like there's like 1,000 lens tutorials, but you know, there's a fraction of that many tutorials for lighting techniques and stuff like that. So I think it's just like a little more difficult to find the research or like reputable people to do research from.
Yeah, I think so. I think also, you know, just again, hitting on the point of the fact that we're creatives and we focus on the camera first is like, you know, what does it mean to you as a filmmaker is pressing record on a camera, right? Yeah. And then it's about getting it into post-production and being like, why doesn't my content look any good? Or like trying to fix things or thinking that, and this is probably the worst thing actually, is like, I'll be honest with you, like we cut corners depending on the parameters that are set by the client. That might be to do with time. It might be to do with budget. We film at some locations that just can't have any light. So that's, you know, understandable. But the difference is we know how to do something properly and we know why we're cutting the corners. So when we look at the footage at the end of it, it's like, yeah, no crap, you know, it doesn't look great, but that's because I've made these sacrifices along the way to fit in within these parameters. Whereas I think just kind of like not having the knowledge or, you know, not educating yourself on the power that lighting can bring to your overall production is probably, you know, the biggest issue that beginners face is just like completely dismissing it as a valuable thing in its own. And I always talk about on my channel, you know, the power of your portfolio, you know, that's why people buy from you is about your portfolio. And you don't have to have big clients to get big projects and big money, but you do need to impress them with like a really creative show reel and things like that as well. So obviously, in essence of trying to keep this as short as possible, what I do want to do, because I really think this will be valuable to dive into, is if you can just talk me through your thought process when you're going to a shoot and you're setting up some lights, because lighting has such an impact. What are you thinking about? You know, what's a useful thing that if I'm walking into a location, I want to dive into your head and talk me through kind of, your thought process.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of two things here. So are we dealing with any natural light, or are we cutting everything, blacking out the scene, or are we shooting at night and we need to start adding all these external lights to the scene? So the first thing I do is I rig up the camera. I mean, now we shoot everything off of our Komodo. So I rig up the camera, turn on the camera. First thing I see on the screen is, ooh, this is ugly. We got to add lights. Okay, so first thing I'm going to add is my key light, always. So let's say we're shooting a corporate interview video, right? And let's say it's just our client or whoever sitting in front of the camera. First thing I'm doing, I'm going to key my subject. After that, I'm going to fill in the other side of the face with fill light, shooting on 45-degree angles. And I like to kind of have the lights a little above their head and then pointing down at them from 45 degrees on the key and the fill. And then after that, I'll start adding in a backlight just to separate the subject from the background. And these are literally, this is so easy to do with 3 lights, and you don't have to have the aperture 600D or 1200D like we do. You can do this with 120Ds. So I think just keeping it to like a beginner scenario, that's really all you need. And these are things that I do using a cinema camera.
Yesterday, we were on our YouTube live on our YouTube channel, and we had somebody ask us kind of a similar question. And I think it relates and can provide some knowledge to this audience as well, where he had all of his 3 lights and he kept wondering, or his question was, why are my lights not showing like they're providing lighting to my subjects' faces? Or the issue that I think he wasn't doing was cutting the lights in the building or the location and then starting to light. And I'm not sure if you said this, Anastas, my Wi-Fi is kind of a little shoddy here at the lake, but always cutting your lights in your location and then using your studio lights, your panel lights, whatever you have to then create your scene and not feel like you're competing with the ceiling lights. I think that's a big rookie mistake.
Do you know, when you're talking about this, I literally just feel like, oh my God, this is just such like flashbacks to like, why would I turn off the lights in the building if I haven't got enough lights? I should just have all the lights on, right? When obviously it's like not,
absolutely, for sure.
It kind of feels like backwards to turn the lights off to then actually light your subject. And I think, you know, again, you guys have got, you know, a bunch of videos about this as well, but having that like 3-point setup as like a, you know, a foundational level, and separating people from the background as well. You see it a lot in interviews where just having like a bit of shallow depth would really help, and just to like break that person up for sure. And I think like from my side, just to add to all of that, is it's very easy, and I feel like I've kind of done this with a bit of shine on my head and stuff. This is a bit of a quick setup, so don't judge, but it's like people just like 100% light on their light panels, right? Like as if like it doesn't dim. They're just like, I need the light, let's go 100%, and then you end up just getting like all of this kind of horrible stuff. One final question. I said it was only gonna be one question, but this is right. So people in an interview setup who wear glasses, how are you dealing with that? Because if I am starting out, or I want to grow my business, I want to grow a better portfolio, I strongly think you need to have some interviews in there, because it will, you know, show that you've got a diverse portfolio and you can adapt to different situations. So whenever people walk into an interview with me with glasses, I instantly like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. So I'd love to find out, how do you guys deal with that? What kind of tips would you have for the audience?
Yeah, so the biggest one, and I can literally picture back to the last interview video that we did, and somebody did have glasses, and we were in a tight space. Like we were in like, it was pretty much the same space as this office, and we had an aperture, we had 2 aperture 600D, so they're pretty big lights, and we pulled up onto the set and they're like, oh, actually we're not filming in this big boardroom, we're filming in this tiny office. So I was like, ooh, okay, and he's wearing glasses, doesn't have contacts, okay. So basically what I would usually do is I would have my key and my fill right, like kind of like in front of the subject. And we did that at first. We looked at the screen, we say, okay, well, we can see the little rings from the apertures in his glasses. What next? So we actually started to separate the lights. So it was more so sandwiching him, but not like, we didn't want it on both sides. We wanted it just barely on the edge here, and then flashing onto his face. And when he was looking at us straight ahead, you didn't see the light in or reflecting out of his glasses. So we actually just pulled it back. And since it was such a tight space, one of our employees actually had to hold the aperture off to the side and hold it really still, because the C-stand didn't fit inside of the room. So we kind of just had to come up with something on the fly, but we still needed to use that key light or fill light. So he had to just hold it while I operated the camera. So I try to just split them across, even if I have to dial up the lights and turn them up a bit, because you're moving them away from the front of the face, just so you can get more spill. And usually we use diffusion grids, the honeycomb grids on the soft boxes. I just took them off, I ripped them off just so it wasn't so directional and the light would spill across the front of the face. Sometimes it's trial and error. Like once you understand how like lighting works, it really is just like sometimes trial and error on set. You can just start to try different things until something works really well.
One thing that just kind of popped into my mind, and it's to do with lighting, but it's something that I think a lot of beginners make the mistake of. And as we've been able to grow our company into higher end productions, we've kind of started to realize the importance of this. That is giving yourself enough time ahead of the start time for you to press record to get there and play around with these variables, because every production, there's always a curveball. And I think a lot of times beginners kind of just like show up right at the start time, scramble to get things together. And then the client's like, okay, like, are we starting? Are we not? Like, give yourself that hour window of setup time to play around with these types of settings, because it's only going to get your product to look a lot better.
I know we're running out of time, but one other little technique that I just thought about too, that a lot of beginners won't think about, is they always have to think that the lights have to be shining on the subject. And if somebody is wearing glasses, and let's say you are in a tight space, I would straight up just bounce your fill or your key right off of the ceiling or onto a wall and bounce it off of like a white wall, and it'll bounce back onto your subject. Like you'd be surprised once you crank that light up by even 50 or 60%, it's going to spill back onto your subject. So that's another way to kind of light up a subject too.
I also think, just kind of like wrap things off, that as filmmakers and creatives, I feel like our job is always to do with problem solving. It's problem solution. You walk into an area, like you said, and this happens on multiple shoots, where you walk into a location, you think you're going to be in one place, and it turns out you're in somewhere completely different. Someone walks in wearing glasses, or one of your lights breaks, and you've got to kind of figure it all out. And that's just part and parcel of being a filmmaker. And that's what makes you a very good all-rounded filmmaker, is if you start to have like a diverse portfolio and start to work on the areas that perhaps you have neglected, or you've started to just not bring up to the same level as perhaps your camera skills. Because I'm sure a lot of the audience, are really talented with cameras and would go out at the weekends and play with a camera, but probably not so much go out there and like think about their light and setups and things. So I certainly think there's like very kind of foundational but fundamental tips and advice that you guys have spoken about that really does make a huge difference. And it was something I neglected. I'd grown a business quite far before I started really thinking about it. So if you're a little bit more experienced and you're growing your company and you haven't considered this, then definitely jump back to that, because again, likewise with you guys, you can really get the most out of a situation as well. So look, obviously in the interest of, I wanted to keep this kind of like bite-sized chunks so that we can just kind of focus on one particular area for each of these podcasts. The idea is that, the audience can then kind of suggest some ideas, and we can start to look into other areas, and that they can just watch the videos that are applicable to them rather than watching a 2-hour-long episode that might contain one bit of information that they were actually looking for at the start. So guys, thank you so much for coming on. Again, I'm really humbled and I really do appreciate it. I know that you guys share the same kind of collaborative approach in this, filmmaking community. And that's something that's, I really kind of have at the foundation of everything that I do, and to meet some like-minded people from across the pond, as they say. I really appreciate your time today. So yeah, thank you guys. We'll obviously link all of your channels below. Please do go and check them out. Anyone who supports my channel is definitely, a friend for life. So again, thank you guys. I really appreciate all of your time.
Sweet.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us. I think the hardest part of this entire process was keeping it to 15 minutes. Like, I feel like everyone here could talk about this stuff for hours. So
I know, I can kind of feel it, like wanting to talk more and more.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, look, I'm going to leave it up to the audience. Put it in the comments. If you guys want to see longer podcasts, cool. We can definitely do it. I would love to think that we could have you guys back. I know you've been talking about
absolutely.
Growth within your production company and certain areas that we were taking as well that you were talking about before you came on. So who knows, next time, if it's something that fits with the guys, then definitely we'll have you back on and talk about that. Sweet. Nice one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Awesome. Take care.